All right, welcome to the Good Man Show. My name is Mr. Rick. I'm your host, and today we have a very special show. You guys may already be familiar with Pastor Keith J. Allen, we've had a series of conversations on relationships. If you haven't listened to that, make sure you do, and make sure you subscribe to my channel and press the like button so you can get more content like this. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when we're going to be posting more conversations. I guarantee you do not want to miss this one. Right now we're going to have conversation about sex and relationships with two of my special guests, along with Pastor Keith J. Allen. If you guys want to put those cell phones on quiet, we're going to get into it. And so I'm going to introduce you guys once again to Pastor Keith J. Allen. How you doing, Pastor Allen?
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
I'm doing good.
Good.
And with us we have two sisters who are going to join our conversation. We're talking about, again, relationships and sex. We have Miss Carolyn. Quinlan. I want to say Davis, but I know y'all sisters, but you have a different name. Miss Carolyn Quinlan. How are you, Carolyn?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. And we have also with us Miss Tammy Davis. Tammy, how are you today?
I'm just blessed.
Good. Now let's get the conversation going. Now I heard you guys were conversing on a little bit before we got here. So, I like to keep this raw and uncut, and so people can get it, the way that it's given. And I might be asking some questions that may be a little uncomfortable, but I want to remind you guys that we do this because we want to be some type of a blessing to other people who may be listening, who may be going through some of the things that we already been through, and we can help them out. And so we know as children of God, we want to be transparent, but you don't have to say anything on here that's going to be incriminating, or you may feel like when you listen to it back, you're uncomfortable. But again, remember, we can't help anybody unless we're transparent. So
That's right.
Right. And so just as you're getting started, one of the things I want to do is make sure that we connect the question in and of itself. Do I have to love you to marry you?
Okay. Yeah,
And
I like
you
that.
know what I'm saying? So we have to make sure that connection is there.
Yes. So let's go there. We did a series. I don't know if you guys listened to any of it at all. You did? Okay. You could pull that mic a little closer to you. We did a series based on a question that Pastor Allen asked me a long time ago. Of course, you guys know that I'm single, and I've been single for a long time. Not only single, but practicing abstinence. But question, Pastor Allen and I have a lot of conversations, and one day he made a statement that I started scratching my head about. He was like, if he had to do it over again, if he got to get married again, that he would not marry for love, meaning that's not a prerequisite for him to get married again. So I was like, whoa, now that I thought that's why people got married. They're in love. You watch all of the movies, and it's like, I fell in love with this person, and and we fell in love, and we decided to get married. And so when he said that, it kind of took me off guard. But over the years, over a period of time, I started thinking, being out in the single world and engaging with different women, I started thinking about it, and I came to the conclusion that I agree with him, that it is not a prerequisite that you two have to be in love before they get married. Now, a lot of people in what I call the manosphere would say that marriage is a business, but we know in the word in the kingdom of God that it is a covenant. So when I started viewing it from that perspective, two things I realized is that I was really messed up by viewing marriage from the worldly point of view, being a Christian. being in the kingdom. So number one, that's like I realized, wow, I'm really influenced by a lot of things that are in the world when I should be influenced by kingdom principles, which is a marriage is a covenant. When you look at a covenant and you look at all of the marriages that were in the Bible in the Old Testament, it makes sense.
So Rick,
okay.
One of the scriptures that says that it's better to marry than burn, right? So again, segueing into what we're going to talk about today, a lot of people motivation for marriage is sex.
Right.
So it's just as detrimental to the concept of marriage and the purpose for which it's established to marry because you are burning inside for sexual satisfaction as it is to marry because you are emotionally involved with somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out as well, because a lot of so-called Christians, and then their marriage don't work because sooner or later, not only did now I realize I didn't love you, I didn't have the right motives for marrying you in the first place. Now I realize because we're not having sex because of the difficulties that are involved with the relationship. You get what I'm saying? And so that's a huge factor right there. But before we get all the way down that line, we can go ahead on and get involved, and then take it from there.
What I would like to do is, because I don't want to miss out on what you guys were talking about earlier. So this is a free-flowing show. So I would like to kind of like get in on what you guys were kind of like talking about earlier.
So they said it was okay. Tammy and Carolyn said it was okay that we, they didn't mind us having an open and honest conversation. And so I would like for them to begin, taking turns as far as a little bit of their background relative to the whole ideal and the concept of sex, because ultimately people have developed an ability to monetize sex. You know what I'm saying? And so from that perspective of speaking, would you guys like to, just give a little bit of background where that whole ideal came from for you?
Well, for me, when I was out in the world at a young age, I was a prostitute. But let me go farther back. When I was much younger, I was molested over and over again by family members. I was raped. A lot of things that happened to me in my lifetime is growing up. So when I got a certain age, at the age of 15, I met this pimp. And we hooked up, got on the street, became a prostitute.
But how do somebody convince you to do that?
Because I had low self-esteem, very low self-esteem. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. My father was in my home, but to me, I wasn't getting that father love. And I was looking for somebody to love me. And when I met this person, he told me that we were going to make it, we were going to get this, we were going to get that. And as a young person, I was only 15 years old, and he had my eyes open.
Interesting phrasing.
So let me ask you. So you said you were molested, and obviously, this was before you turned 15. So what age did it start? It
started, I believe, the age of 7.
7 years. Wow.
Yeah, over and over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you say over and over again, you mean like, what do you mean, like constant on an everyday basis or every week?
Every other week.
Wow. By one particular family member?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you care to do, like, you don't have to say any names, but do you care, like, if it was a cousin or brother or
My cousin.
your cousin? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were 7. You started at 7.
Yes.
Wow.
And it really messed me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how messed up I was.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the age of 12, I started having sex.
Wow.
I started looking for boys,
Mm-hmm.
to love me,
So now let's dissect it a little bit more, because I noticed a few times you equated sex with love. This is exactly the mistake that people make when they get married or before they get married. And oftentimes women in particularly think that they can keep a man, and now I guess in this hour, women.
Nowadays,
You know what I mean? They think that you can keep your partner simply because, you're having sex with them or you're giving them something. And I found that to be fascinating that you used the phrase a number of times already, that I was looking for love. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so I want whoever's listening, I want them to get that distinction that I'm looking for love. Okay, so now I'm going to equate love with sex. Mm-hmm. So, but the crazy part about it is that when you were being molested, did you interpret your molestation as love?
No.
That's why I asked the question.
No, I didn't.
Well, it's strange how then you can then transcend it into when a guy or whoever is touching you and just whatever and putting his penis in your vagina, that they love me. You get what I'm saying? So we have to see where something got broken right there. You know what I mean? And I want whoever's listening to understand that when something like that happens to you, something has been broken, something has been severed in you relative to that, and it happened. And I'm gonna just say this, and you can edit it out if you choose to do. But I wanna highlight the spiritual implications behind it, because there's a spiritual darkness behind
Right.
just a little bit you just said right here. So Carolyn, what's up with you?
Well, we came from similar backgrounds. I was also out in the street.
Go ahead.
I was out in the street prostituting. I left home at 16. I was all before that. There was mistake. I was molested. There was rape.
Wow.
so you were molested as well?
Yes,
Wow.
cousin. And
Was it the same cousin? Because you
no.
guys are sisters. Okay.
And it was hard. It was hard. I can remember even my dad and mom friend. I remember being 12 years old, and he tried to make a move. And first
You
thing
remember
I
that
told,
too? As well?
the first thing I told him, if you don't give me some money, I'm telling my dad.
Wow.
And I think that was a beginning for me, realizing that men wanted my body. And it took the street. It was fascination. I was looking at glamour.
Right. So did Tammy bring you in, or how did that
The
happen?
thing, I
Oh,
didn't bring. I tried to keep her away. She would come to the house, and when guys came to the house, I would try to put her out.
right.
I tried to keep her from that lifestyle because I knew what it brought. It brought a lot of beating, drugs on the, alcohol, whatever. It brought a lot of things that I didn't want for her. Mm-hmm. But it didn't happen that way. She got involved. She went her way.
So just for reference sake, now how old are you? Oh, you're older than Tammy, right?
Yes.
And how old? How much older?
2 years.
2 years.
apart.
Okay. Okay. So you followed in her footsteps.
Yes.
But the prerequisite for everything was that you were molested. You both were molested.
Yes,
Yeah.
and rape.
And raped.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you. I have to ask because you mentioned your father. So your father was at home and in your
Oh
life?
yes, he was a working man, but my father was a quiet man.
Mm-hmm.
He never. I mean, he gave us hugs,
Mhm.
but we had to go to him and say, "Daddy, we love you,
I
Daddy."
remember.
Oh,
And we
wow.
used to kiss him all over his face
He
and
said,
stuff.
"Go
He
away."
said, "Oh, go and sit down somewhere," you know. But I was the type of kid. I was looking for my daddy to protect me and to love me and to tell me about mans and stuff. He didn't do that.
Wow.
He didn't do that.
Now that's important, and just for the sake of clarification, because Pastor Allen didn't. He just said, "I remember that." Pastor Allen is related to Tammy and and Carolyn. They're cousins.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
So I had to just make sure that.
Right. So now let's break down some components to the whole ideal of sex. You guys did great giving us like a little bit of the background, and maybe at another time you can get into some stories about your experiences as being prostitutes and that kind of a thing. And if you want to interject some of that now, where it fits, that'll be fine. But I'm thinking, like, let's break it down, okay? Because there's that physical element and there's that physical mindset relative to what you've gone through. And whenever, and this is what, and Rick, you chime in, whenever molestation or rape or any kind of incest, anything like that takes place, I want to emphasize the fact that there's always something taken. It's not just the body, but there's always something that happens to the mind.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm saying? In that mind, and when I hear you say, "Well, I wanted my daddy," that's that mindset where you wanted him to fix that, that part of your mind that was snatched from you and put back. And I'm suspicious of it being, tell me I'm okay, Dad. Tell me it's not my fault, or tell me I'm still lovable. You know what I mean? Or I'm still accepted, by that. And that's a huge thing, because an issue for me would become acceptance. And a lot of people, even as grown-ups, don't understand that they are inviting people into their space, into their body, into their mind, and all they want is acceptance. Even without sex, I just want acceptance. You get what I'm saying? And for me, that becomes the prerequisite for marriage, is that a person can demonstrate acceptance of me. You get what I'm saying? Because I don't want to battle that with all the other issues that's going to come along within the relationship. I don't want to battle the fact that I got to compete for your acceptance. Because guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out and I'm going to find somebody else in exactly the same pattern. I'm going to have sex with somebody else. I'm going to get high. I'm going to do all these things, all because the deficit is acceptance.
I want to back up a little bit too on the same thing, because she also said that she wanted her dad to protect her. So that was an issue to me. Like, a father is supposed to be able to protect his daughters from something like that. So my first question would be, is that, like, if you did tell your father, and if you didn't, why didn't you tell your father that this happened, Tammy? And because I would believe that I would. Having a daughter myself, I used to think back and remember when I used to pray and ask God, like, please, Lord, don't let me have to encounter a situation like that with my daughter, because I know that I would probably become murderous. I would become homicidal. If my daughter told me, I don't care who it is, that somebody molested her. So I bring that up just to ask, like, first of all, did you tell your father that this happened to you, or your mom, or parents, or anybody?
No, I didn't. My father, He's dead and gone now.
Mm-hmm.
I never told him that I was molested
Mm-hmm.
because I was a little kid. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do.
How old was your cousin when this happened?
She was 18, 19.
Oh, it was a female.
Huh?
It was a female.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't know what to say. I was a little kid.
Wow.
I kept my mouth shut. But when I was raped, I told my father. And matter of fact, he came to the house after he raped me.
Who
And
came to
I
the
got
house?
so
The guy who?
yes, the guy.
Who? It was this your cousin too?
No.
Okay, this was somebody.
And
that
I
was
got so angry. I was screaming and shouting at him and stuff. Told him to get out my house. And then my father said, "Shut up. What's wrong with you?" And then when he said that just cut me.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I started smoking marijuana. And when I met this pimp, he gave me cocaine. At the age of 15, I started getting high. I didn't want to think about it no more. I started drinking. I didn't want to think about that no more.
Wow. So what about you, Carolyn? How, like, you were molested as well. Did you tell your father or your parents or anybody, like, at the time when it first happened?
I didn't feel the same way that my sister felt. I always felt like an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be promiscuous at a young age.
When you say outsider, from your from your
the
family?
rest of the family.
Okay.
It was almost like I felt that I didn't fit in there.
Right. And that's what Pastor Allen's talking about, like the acceptance.
Yeah.
You didn't feel accepted.
And there was no, maybe she got I didn't. There was no hugs on either dad or mom's side. So I didn't feel that. So when all those things happened, I got promiscuous. I would slip men, not boys, men, into my bedroom at night because I had a door.
And how old were you when you were doing that?
I was like 15.
So you was bringing grown men?
Yeah.
Tammy's like, you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I did. And
Is this hard for you right now, the recollection of it, you know?
no, because I hope that this will help someone else.
Okay.
I was really promiscuous. I knew that I used sex to make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And it only lasts for a second because after it's over with, that same feeling would come back. And, there was a lot of men in my life. It was a lot. Because I knew that I could get this person or that person. I used that. I used my body.
Mm-hmm.
And the drugs was just an add-on, so it just took me out. I didn't have to think about it. Whatever I wanted to do, I did it, and that was that. But as with anything else, you have to keep doing more and more, because after a while, that doesn't even work.
So at what point did your mom know that any of this was going on?
I think I was 54
What?
when I told.
She had no idea none of this was going on. Are you kidding me?
I was 40
Where were you guys?
something.
You guys were out of not in the same city, or did you move away, or
We was born in South Carolina, so it was in South Carolina.
And
okay.
then we moved up here.
Okay.
But I used to travel a lot, but that's going,
Right.
But I told my mother when I was 40-something. And then when I told her, it just blew my mind. She didn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say something right here, because I, like, outside of you guys being my cousins, I have daughters, and one of my daughters let me know that she was raped, and I'm suspicious that the
Wow.
other one was raped. Okay, and when I investigated, because exactly like you said, I was ready to kill somebody. You know what I mean? And the thing that happened when I was almost begging, with tears in my eyes, the whole nine, I was almost begging them, tell me who it is, tell me blah, 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 blah. And they refuse, and they start crying, and they refuse. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because sometime the victim want to protect the ones that they love. And so the one daughter that I had the conversation with, I sensed that she didn't want me to know who it was because of what I would
What she knew
do.
you would do. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that hurt me worse because I didn't get the satisfaction
Right.
of doing something to this person who hurts somebody that I love. That's number one. So I think that on some levels, sometimes you don't tell because you want to protect your loved ones because you know the repercussions. And then sometimes you don't tell because you know they won't believe you. You believe that they won't believe you.
Right.
And it's a risk on the victim's part to expose something,
Yeah.
because they're gonna want to know, well, what did you do, and why do you, blah, where was you over there, and what, blah blah blah. So it's a risky kind of thing to, to divulge that, and the fact that you guys managed somehow or another to get those words out, I applaud you for. But on another hand, if you had any kind of relationship, and I'm saying this respectfully, y'all my family, the whole nine, but it's hard to believe that there were no signs that your parents did not know something. And you got to think about it, because even when you did approach it, it was denial. And the denial is there because now as a parent, I now have to feel some kind of way about myself. Where was I? Why didn't I know? So, the whole nine. So instead of addressing, especially if you come from a family who is not that kind of confrontation, it's not that you don't have, confront things, but that kind of confrontational, they're not necessarily going to, they're not going to necessarily, I ain't saying this is the rule, or anything, but not that chance of them not accepting it is a great thing. So I want to put that out there to that degree, and I watch the behavior later within both my children, and I'm watching certain behavior patterns that come along with people who've gone through those kinds of things.
Yes, because I grew up angry. I was an angry girl. I grew up fighting.
Very angry.
Fight. Yes, very angry. I used to fight all the time. And my mother said, you just mean, you just like your aunt. She never say that, oh, I was like this, or my father was like this. She always put it on one of my aunts in the family. You just like your aunt. Because I grew up mean, because what happened to me, and nobody wouldn't listen to me, so the anger came in, the fighting.
And so with that, you have to understand, because we're going to segue into the whole meaning and the whole ideal of what sex is. And I want to do that by piggybacking off of what Carolyn said when she said, there was a lot of men, and then, it will only last for a moment, and then I would go right back in to that place. Again, it's like somebody being on drugs. It's like somebody being whatever, because you're chasing not necessarily that feeling, because there was a lot of hurt, confusion, a lot of pain involved with innocence being taken and not surrendered. So you're not necessarily chasing that as a feeling, but what you're doing is chasing a feeling. You know what I mean? At least because that's when everything went numb. Right there is when things got numb in me, and I was confused, and I didn't have a sense of direction. So, and to be honest with you, I'm emphasizing the church people, because I'm Pastor Allen. But I'm interested. I'm people, period.
Uh-huh.
But in particularly church people, and you'll be surprised at why their life in God becomes stagnated. And you'll be surprised at one of the hardest things. You think cigarettes is hard to give up. You think all that. Sex is one of the hardest things to give up. Trying to serve God. And most people end up backsliding because they know in their mind something that they're not producing in their character. You know what I'm saying? And the guilt associated with that is crazy. So I want to ask, like, you know, Rick was talking about, he wanted us to talk about where we were before. I want to ask you, like, what was that like when, or at what point in place that you decide that that was going to be the lifestyle, that that was going to be the thing that you decided to do, live celibate?
I know.
Or wait, the correct grammar is abstinent, because that's the choice. The lifestyle is the celibacy, and the choice is abstinence. So go ahead.
For me, it was when I got saved, when I came to God, because before, well, right now, let me back up a little bit. I've been married for 33 years, but we've been separated for a long time. My justification was, we're not together, so I'm going to have me a man. And I did. But when I came to God and I said, God, I don't want to live like this no more, that had to stop. It was a conviction. I could no longer go and have a man laying up in my bed because my pastor taught me you're married. Whether you're together or not, you are still a married woman. And I had to look at that. I could no longer lay with someone, and it was okay. It wasn't okay anymore because it was a conviction.
Right, but even before it got to that point, like, because when you say what you said, you lead me to believe that you just said, I ain't gonna do it no more, and that was the end of it.
No, I was tired, and I didn't want to live like that no more. But temptation came. Temptation came.
That's what I want to talk about.
The temptation come.
Yeah. So, in what forms or ways did the temptation come?
Oh, it seemed like men was just popping up everywhere.
It's almost sounded like you was gonna say they was sending.
Yeah, I was gonna say they was sending them to me. It was like, because I was a person that if I looked and liked something, I got it. But now I got to restrain myself from this. So I would look and turn my head, but it seemed like everywhere I went, there was a man.
Right.
Somebody would come up to me, and it, not just men, female too.
Mm-hmm. So watch this. What we should emphasize is the struggle with attraction.
Oh, yes.
And that's my point.
Yes.
Because you decide that you're not going to be sexually active, it doesn't mean that the spirit of attraction.
It doesn't.
So I'm gonna interject right here. I'm gonna ask another question. I'm gonna be the advocate. So you just mentioned you were being approached by women as well, right?
Yeah.
So that at any point did any one of you get involved in sex with the opposite sex?
I did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I was molested
By
over and
woman.
over by a woman.
Mhm.
That woman's spirit came upon me. And yes, I did.
And I ask this because I have a daughter. She's 22 now, and she's involved in and engaged in the LGBT. That's her lifestyle right now. And nowadays it's experimental with most of the young people. The spirit has, I believe, has more free reign with young people's minds than it did back then. You know what I mean? And so when you guys were younger, like how old did you get when you stopped dealing with women?
When God delivered me.
Okay, so when you gave your life to Christ is when is that the same with you?
But excuse me, but I got to say this. When God delivered me, I thought that I was delivered from that. And years later, that spirit followed me in the church. in the church. Because today, it's women's in the church messing with women.
I know.
Men's in the church messing with men's today. And that spirit came back. And when I felt that spirit, I'm like, God,
So
I thought I
Tammy,
was delivered.
I'm sorry, right? But I want to emphasize what we have to deal with the attraction, and that's why under that umbrella, everything that you're saying is dealing with the spirit of attraction. The decision is one thing, but the attraction is another. Because you make that decision does not mean that having the attraction is gone.
Temptation.
Uh-huh.
And
So
that's a process in and of itself.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
And so so I have to ask, are you any of you still dealing with like currently with that that spirit? Like is that still like an attraction that you fight with? You know what I
So
mean?
are you? But let's generalize it first, because
Okay.
let's bring some more conversation out. And then, if you don't mind, let's generalize it, and then put it under this kind of umbrella, and let's just deal with the whole concept under the spirit of attraction with sex first, and then. What I was hoping to do in a different situation was talk about sexuality. Because if we just stay right here, we're dealing with sexuality. But if we keep it under the umbrella of sex, it can include all aspects of the act itself, and then the detriment to the kind of direction in life you want to go in. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of us have a desire for higher goals and to do more, but because we're dealing with this whole idea, I want to know about the desire, period, for sex. And what happened in your mind sounds tormenting. It sounds like torment to me.
That's before you answer, Sister Tammy, I'm gonna say that's an interesting question because we're gonna keep it under the umbrella of sex. That it not only includes conversation from you guys and where you've been, but me as well. Because if I understand, Tammy, you and both of you guys are abstinent right now, right?
Right.
You're still married, of course, right? It's Carolyn, right? So, but you are not married,
No.
Tammy, and I'm not married, and I'm practicing abstinence as well. So I can speak on the whole, how hard it is and what you have to go through as well as a man from a man's perspective, and of course you guys can speak on it from a female perspective. Like that attraction thing is. It's like because it doesn't go away.
No.
I heard a story once from a Bishop Noel Jones. He was telling the story of how he had a woman in his church who was struggling with the temptation, of attraction, being attracted to a man and wanting to have sex as well. And she came to him and said, "Pastor, I need for you to pray and fast, and I need for you to cast that spirit out of me of desire." Right, and he said to her, he said, "Okay, I can do that. I could pray and ask God to remove that desire from you. But what happens when you meet the man that you want to marry? Now you gonna have to come back, and I'm gonna have to pray that spirit back in you. So I said all that to say that God doesn't take the desire away from us. We have to manage to control it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And as adults, having had such experiences, because I've had, I can almost say that I was molested as a child, because I started having sex when I was 10 years old. My 18-year-old babysitter, introduced me to sex and took my virginity away. But I always had the mind. I always thought that I was way older than I was. Because I always dealt with older women.
Yeah.
And not so much older was it. I discovered later on it wasn't the fact that they were older, but more mature women.
Right.
You know what I mean? So in my mind, it wasn't no big thing. I was 10 years old. I was like, I expected that was supposed to happen.
I don't feel like a victim.
Right. I didn't. I felt
Thank you,
like
God.
I was like exactly. And so for young boys, it's a lot different, because society has taught us that that's no big deal. You know what I mean? But it affected my life in a way that it affected my outlook or my world view on women. You know what I mean? I grew up thinking that it was women's duty to please me. You know what I mean? Like y'all was here for my pleasure, for my sexual pleasure. You know what I mean? And I discovered that later. You know, God made that very clear to me, Tammy. So He made that very, very clear to me. But we bringing this up because these things happen to us as children. You know what I mean? And it didn't get any better in this world. But now that we're older and we're having to deal with the temptations and like Pastor Allen said, the attraction. You know what I mean? Because it didn't stop. You know what I mean? Because I decided to give my life to the Lord and become abstinent. Like I had to take cold showers sometimes. You know what I mean? I had to pray. Really, I'm a man. I don't know that it's kind of different. Let me put it in perspective. At the average woman, I would say I have a one up on as far as body counts. You know what I mean? But I'm talking to you guys who had a lifestyle of prostitution. So once if you've had enough of body counts, it's not as, it's not as alluring as it would. You look for other things, you know what I'm saying? When you're young and when you still think that there's something fresh and new out there, you know what I mean? That it's going to be something different. At a certain point, at a certain age, you came to the point, you had to come to the realization that, look, it's all basically, when it comes to sex, they all the same.
But do me a favor. I want to still talk about how difficult it is to deal with that. Like you said, do I pray? And have you ever prayed that God take attraction or your desire for sex away? You know what I mean? Carolyn said nope.
My problem personally was the closer I got to God and the more that I wanted to please him, the more it became like a issue for me. Like, oh God, I did it again. You know what I mean? Oh, I didn't want it. Why am I continuing? Why is this a problem? So yes, like, can't you just take this away, this desire away from me? And then I think, wait, hold up, nope, don't take it away because, well, just bless me with somebody that, and it's complicated because then you'd be like, well, do I just want to be with somebody like you mentioned earlier? It's better to marry than to burn with, with lust and or affection and all that kind of stuff. So it's a whole spectrum of things that you go through.
So let's hear from them, from their perspective.
I never asked God to take it away. I've always asked God to help me to go through it.
Go through what?
The attraction feeling, that lust spirit that I have, and I know I do. So when I say go through it, so I can learn from that. Because if he take it away to me, I'm not learning nothing. So I'm not going through anything to learn from
But didn't that mess with your mood sometime?
At first it did.
That's where I want to get to.
At first it did because I was a lustful woman.
You still a lustful woman? You need prayer right now?
I was.
In what way did it mess with you?
By attitude. I go and see something that looked good or somebody winked their eye and I wanted to wink back and stuff and, just in those perspectives. And I knew that I could get this person, but it was like something inside was saying, I don't think you better, Carol. Just walk away. And it wasn't always easy for me to do that because that is I wanted to jump.
What do that feel like? What state of mind are you battling? What emotions are you battling when that desire for sex comes?
Is there any loneliness involved, or is it just
It's
pure?
It's loneliness.
Like, yeah.
And then I feel like I'm under restraint.
Okay, when you say that, how come?
Because my hands are tied. I know that I'm not supposed to do this here, but I long to do it.
But doesn't it mess with your mind?
Sometimes and sometimes it didn't. I have to be honest about that.
Tammy, what about you?
Well, for me, loneliness comes in, because at the age of 61. I thought I would have been married by now.
So are we talking about sex or are we talking about loneliness?
Both.
Both.
But no.
but sex-
There's a distinction.
There is,
Okay.
yeah.
You confuse them.
Yeah,
Okay.
right,
But
right,
there's
right.
a distinction between the two, and sometimes the problem is that you're mixing this
Yeah.
one at treating them like they the same thing.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Well, for me, it's not all about sex.
That's what my point
For me,
is.
it's
Mm-hmm.
not because when I was a prostitute,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't laying down with man after man after man because I was a thief, you know. And I used
Mm-hmm. You was
to
a thief,
jostle.
too?
Yeah, I was a thief,
Oh, Lord
you know.
Jesus.
And I was a pro at it,
Oh,
you know.
okay.
And I'm not bragging on the devil,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But when I was out there in the world, I was a pro at everything that I did, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody wanted Diamond. That was my nickname. And it's not all about sex to me, you know. I just want
Companion?
companion. And I know companion comes with having sex when you're married.
Okay,
You
no,
know?
not necessarily.
not necessarily.
And that's why this conversation is important, because every married couple is not having sex every night or every week even or every month even. You'll be surprised at how many people that walk through the door and they haven't had sex in 6 months. You'll be or a year, and they live in the same house with their companion.
That's okay with me, are you?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But we're saying this so that because people have this romantic idea of what it is
Yeah.
to be even married.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you dealing with a person who, for whatever their reasons are, biological, psychological, emotional, cannot perform sexually, you still have to develop the companionship that marriage was designed for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But even not even going there, I mean, it's the desire is hard, and be honest with you, I'm equating it, trying to relate to trying to go on a diet and the cheesecake is calling you. You know what I mean? Or the cookies are calling you. And in your mind, you know what I'm saying? You're saying, no, I'm not supposed to have it. But it emotionally, it was how I coped with everything. And I wasn't conscious that every time I was stressed, I reached for the cookie. You know what I mean? Or I reached for the cake, or I went shopping, or I gambled. I wasn't conscious of it because I just did that. So now that you're conscious and saying, you know what, God is not pleased with me for doing this, it doesn't, you still got to cope with the compulsion. Because it's an addiction to people.
Yes, it is.
And most people don't even understand that they are addicted to that.
You know, for me, sometimes it's not, because I'm to the point where I'm dealing with the loneliness. Because I, you know, with God, it gets easier. I'm alone, but I'm not alone. Sometimes it's just the straight desire. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just want to physically be, you know, whole hell was, you
And
know.
how you do it?
How do you do what?
How do you not go be physically held?
Well, there are a lot of different ways, a lot of restraints, because you know, in your mind, you know, like God said he will make a way out of for you to escape out of that temptation. So a lot of times it's just a mental fight. You just have to battle, you know, in your mind, and sometimes just like, you know, sometimes I'll just be like, I hang up on that call, or I'll you know, or I'll just be like, I gotta distract myself some other way, you know what I mean?
So let me ask this question. Do celibacy or abstinence include no masturbation? Because that's something that we haven't addressed along with the idea of what celibacy is and what you know, abstinence
That's a
is.
sin too.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. I did masturbate, and I have to be honest about that.
I didn't.
I had a little toy. So, for me to sit here and act like, yes, I did those things.
So when you decided I'm not gonna mess with anybody again, again, it's not the will of God, and you exchanged
One for
one
another.
thing for the other.
Yes, I did.
For me, the sin of masturbation is not masturbating itself. The sin of masturbation is the imagination.
Yeah, yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And most people are not disciplined enough to just relieve themselves without an imagination.
I tried it. I gotta be honest. I really tried to. When I first stopped having sex, I said, okay, as long as I don't think about nobody, then I'm not sinning. You know what I mean? So I really, literally tried. You know what I mean? But at some point, see, the flesh is never satisfied.
No.
You know what I mean? It's gonna want more. It's like smoking. When I started smoking weed, after a while, for me, somebody introduced me to something else that got me higher. You know what I mean? I was like, I wanted that. You know what I'm saying? And so I literally tried, because I convinced myself, as long as I don't think about nobody else, because the Bible says if you look at a woman to lust after, you've committed adultery with her in your heart. So the problem with that is I've had so many experiences that it's the devil's job to put that in your mind. You know what I mean? So you can probably, I did it for a little bit, but after a while, I was like, I needed more. That's more something more to stimulate me. You know what I mean?
And so
then
what's crazy,
so then
right,
that stuff started coming to my mind.
You just left church and praising the Lord.
Yeah.
And you go home and fantasize about that sister or that brother that was in church that day, and it's beyond your control to take your mind in a different different direction. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I wanted to talk about it like this, because it's real for people.
Yes, it is.
And to just say, like when we started, Carol, you was like, well, I just knew it was wrong, and I just said I ain't gonna do it no more. That's not the reality for people who don't understand it. It's not that they sincerely don't want to stop, but that burden is crazy.
It is.
Well, God spoke to me before. It was on a Sunday morning, and I wasn't even out of bed yet. And God came to me and spoke to me for an hour about having sex and about sin and death. And after he spoke to me, and I got up, I said, Lord, I'm done, no more. And I thought about it. A 15-minute pleasure will get you in hell. It's not worth it.
15 minutes.
It's not worth it. A 10 minutes pleasure. It's not worth it. It's not even worth it.
Don't make me
Hey, I'm giving you 3
So
tops.
when I made up my mind, and when I made up my mind, and God brought me through, and every year that go by, it got easier and easier.
Right. So now, moving toward, the time situation. Now, right, how do you see yourself developing, first of all, any relationship? Because if you're attracted to the same sex, or you're bisexual or whatever, when that sensation of attraction come up, how do you determine what to do? What do you do when that attraction happens?
Well, Pastor, when I see a good-looking man, I'm like, he look good, Ain't nothing wrong with compliment a person. I'm like, he look good, But I really don't have that sex drive thing. I don't have that no more.
So what you gonna do when you do get that man, and he wants to? You gonna?
God knows the right man to bring me
To get it
He
back,
does.
get that sex
yeah,
drive
to get
back.
it back. To get it back.
What
He
if
does.
it don't come back though?
Well, I'll be single.
I'm talking about after you get married. What if it don't?
Oh.
You find it don't come back because you still have a duty.
Right. It got to.
It don't got to.
He got to bring me the right man. I mean, God ain't finna bring you anybody.
I found that it's for me. Over time, it gets easier and easier, but only as I draw closer to, draw closer to God.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't stay still.
No, you can't.
'Cause
You can't.
I'll be like, you know, it just come on you because that's the enemy's job is
Right.
to put it in front of you and give you a reason to, you know, start making you find reasons to like,
Right.
you know, violate.
So for me, right, I look at it as the desire is a natural urge,
Right.
and it is
It's
unnatural to deny yourself
Right.
the urge. So you're going against your development, your thinking. You're going against everything you were designed to do because it's necessary for procreation. So now for you to expect me to abstain from something that I'm naturally endowed with, it can mess up your mind, like psychologically. How do I now say to myself, I'm not going to do something that I'm naturally designed to do?
That exposes the real problem. The real problem, because it is natural, and this whole nine, the Bible even says it's not good for man to be alone. The real problem is having what it takes to coexist or get with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I find myself scrutinizing potential, you know, women to be married with. You know what I mean? Now I'm thinking, oh, what I gotta give up to be committed to one person. That's the real issue is like, man, you gotta be committed to one person, one woman. When before I was in God, I never had to think that way. You know what I mean? Like I could no. So the real problem is, okay, can I confine my desires and everything to this one woman, at the same time being tempted? I know I'm gonna be tempted by other women. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother fight now that I'm gonna have to engage in. You know what I mean? So it's almost easier to make my mind think, you know, because now I got a lot of I have a lot of options, and that's kind of like, if I can be transparent, that's kind of like gives you a sense of I still have a lot to choose from. But once I make that choice, I'm stuck with that one choice, and now I got another a fight on my hands. If I'm not happy or if I'm not satisfied with this person that I'm committed to, it's not, because I always say now, once I say I do, that's it. I'm in. I'm lock, stock, and barrel. Ain't no getting out. I can't go to God and say, oops, I made a mistake. You know what I mean? That's just it. So.
And that's another thing, too, that came to my mind. God, you know, you send me a husband, and he don't satisfy me. Just like you said, I got to live with him for the rest of my life. And, you know, when he said, come on, baby, you know, I'm going to say, oh, my God.
So you know what? That can't be, that relationship, marriage can't be based on sex.
No, it can't. And to me, if you got this relationship, you're married, I think what the other lacking, you got it covered. Well, I'm going to say I got it covered. So I don't look at the fact that he may not satisfy me because I know how to fix that.
And that's where we're going toward closing, right?
Yeah.
Is that you...
I shouldn't say fix that, but...
I got you.
Remedy that. How that's an interesting.
No, we don't want
I'm not gonna.
but that's my point right there, because ultimately we have to put the whole idea of sex into the proper context.
Right.
And to know what it is supposed to give us, so that we won't unreasonably put demands in a place, because sometimes while we're not satisfied, and that's whether a male penis is big enough, that's whether it's too small, too big, blah, blah, blah. So when all those concepts is talking about raw sex rather than purposeful sex. And the seed of sex itself, of course, is procreation, but it is primarily an expression of the relationship itself. And so the physicalities is one thing, but the problems within the relationship or the companionship is another. And what we do outside of sex purpose is we become initiated. And this is one of the things I taught in one of our services, is that you'll be surprised at how many people use sex ritualistically. You know what I'm saying? And if you want to put what you got, where you guys come from and what God delivered you from overall, you were really practicing demonic rituality relative to your ultimate goal. So I'll mesmerize you and titillate you physically, so that on one hand, as Diamond, I could be digging in your wallet the whole time. And I'm making you think you're getting what you want.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how a lot of people approach relationships. They go into it in their fantasy and think they're getting what they want. And then when the spell is broken, you realize you've been taken. You feel fooled. You feel, you know what I mean? You feel betrayed, because who you thought you were sleeping with and who you thought you married is not that person. So I'm saying that to say that ultimately you guys have to be careful, because that spirit you've operated under don't mean it's gone.
Right.
It's subdued.
Right.
And so anytime within that marriage, you know how to turn back on the spiritual concept of it, and literally claim to be saved but operate in demonology. You know what I'm saying? And demonology primarily comes out of experience, what you were taught when you were at your lowest point, the decisions you made when you was at your lowest places in your life. Demonology took place, which means knowledge given to you by a demonic experience or demonic exposure. Most people sitting in church don't even realize that that's exactly what's going on in their life. And so they try to break what we call a stronghold, and they seemingly can't because of the knowledge. You know what I mean? That demonology. And you revert back to that anytime you need to protect yourself or whatever the case may be. So you guys, like, what would intimidate me in just the natural realm is just your experience, period. You know what I'm saying? And what, you know what I mean? Because if, as a male, if I'm looking for what everybody at this table agreed that we looking for, which is companionship. If I'm looking for companionship and you're judging me, that's gonna rock me. That's gonna rock me. Because when a male feels inadequate in any way, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He shuts down. He turns off. He stops conveying. He not only have a problem with ejaculating, he has a performance problem. Period.
True.
You know what I'm saying? So and I think that on some levels, whether you're conscious of it or not, you guys learned that through your demonology, through the knowledge of operating in darkness. You learned that is that if all I gotta do is talk to a male a certain kind of way, and it activates and praise his performance. You know what I'm saying? It activates something, but then when you want to hurt them, you take praise away. Because for a male, that's all part of the act of sex itself. is the praise. That's
Wow.
y'all quiet.
Wow, and then
That's it.
so a lot of, because that
It's
applies to a lot of men, but not all men. Of course, once you come into a certain level of maturity, as far as I can get into the whole alpha beta male thing, but that is a powerful thing because women instinctively, y'all know that, you know what I mean. Y'all know how to, like, I call it starving. I know how to starve a man from the very thing that he really need, and it's not really sex, like Pastor Allen says. See, women need something, I think, different than what men need. You know what I mean?
Women primarily would like emotional attachment. If you can stimulate the ideal of being queen and the ideal of being the most important thing in that woman's life, if you can stimulate that concept in her mind, then no matter what, you're the greatest lover, period. And it's not based on just one area of the relationship. You get what I'm saying? But a woman has to understand, by the same token, and I'm doing this on purpose because this is the Good Man Show. I'm doing this on purpose. Is that because most men are not even conscious that they crave praise. They literally crave praise. We're performance-oriented creatures. And so if that dries up, or if that criticism is not done with an artistic ability, then you crush everything. Excuse me, everything in that male that makes him feel like he's alpha.
And
But I
that's
think, okay, go ahead.
that's so true. Just listening to that pastor, because I know I've done that to men. And just thinking about that when you said that, I mean, I've crushed him and walked away.
The way your look on your face was, wow.
Yeah, I felt
And
sorry
now-
for whoever you were.
And now, just by you talking about that and me thinking about that, it's not a good feeling that I feel now, but I know I have done that. I have crushed him, man. I've crushed him. And today, that's something that I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying is because women, you don't understand, or maybe you do and you just don't care. But regardless to that, you got to watch your tongue. You got to watch your words. You got to watch how you say you're unhappy. You got to watch how you say what you say. If I'm making $250 a week, but I go to work and the bills are $5,000 a month or $1,000 a month, and all I got is $250, and it's not enough to go around, and I'm already feeling some kind of way because my self-esteem is involved with my performance. Let me say it again. My self-esteem is involved with my performance, and not to have a mother who knew the power of praising a son, not to have a father who's been praised themselves, but you lived in a house where the mom has always criticized the man, and then the boy is raised, you know what I'm saying, being quiet, watching his father sit in his chair and be quiet and don't say a lot, because every time he opened his mouth it's argumentative, you know what I'm saying? So what do you think the bedroom is going to look like? You know what I mean? What do you think sex is going to be like? I just want to hit it because I have a natural urge. So you think I'm interested in foreplay, caressing you, loving you, kissing on you, and then at the same time I'm kissing this mouth that just told me I wasn't nothing. That just told me they had better sex than me before. And if I was any kind of a man, I would be able to make certain kind of money. You know what I'm saying? So all that plays a factor, and that's what I'm saying. Sex in and of itself is an act, is an expression of the covenant, of the companionship, of the relationship. And when you learn how to deal with what bothers you outside the bedroom, the foreplay can begin outside the bedroom. You know what I mean? I can give you what I know you like. I can surprise you with flowers. I can surprise you with a dinner unplanned. I can do things that stimulate that perception that you're my one and only. But when you tear me down with your mouth, when you tear me down with your attitude, and I watch you laugh with other people and praise other people and have a life apart from me, and then you still, well, you don't do nothing. You da 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 da. You know what I mean? You still, but there's a thought pattern behind that. Mm-hmm. There's something wrong behind that. You know what I'm saying? And so whatever God or you deem that God bless you right with, you got to know how to treat right. Mm-hmm. You got to know how to, and I mean it from male to female, from female to male. Mm-hmm. And that's the success. My wife and I will have been together almost 50 years. The 28th of this month, almost 50 years, and that includes being boyfriend and girlfriend all the way through to marriage. And she's been my only wife. I'm trusting I'm her only man. I'm trusting that she treat me like I am anyway. But any problems can be worked out. And sex, truth be told, is an expression of a spiritual dynamic or dimension. It's a consummation of an agreement expressed. Get what I'm saying? And so when I kind of in a way, to be honest with you, I kind of in a way like what you said, Carolyn, that like if it ain't right sexually, we can fix it. We can do something about that. But it's intimidating. And trust is going to be a huge part of that.
But that's the danger of two people who haven't been healed and had their minds regenerated, coming together and getting married. You know what I mean? Because you got it's a level of maturity. Like the thing I say now is sex is for grown folks.
I like that.
You know what I mean? It's for mature, accountable, grown people, because it's not. It involves something else. It involves creation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like we in the midst of all of this, most of the problems with society today is that a lot of these children were born out of wedlock.
Yes.
Out of, meaning not just out of the concept of just being married to someone, but the love that is fostered between them two people.
Right.
And this is supposed to be a product of that
right.
that love and that union, and that's not what's happening. So now you got all of these people growing up and getting together and getting married, and they're hurting, and they jacked up, and their psyche is messed up, and you have a mess. When they come together, they just now discovering who they are. And I tell a lot of women, like now, and that's why I have to preach the gospel, because I tell women, you need to be looking. If you don't know Christ, first of all, get to know Christ. Because if you, in my opinion, if you don't have a relationship with Christ and you can't be subject to Him, I don't have a chance. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so I tell women, listen, I look for the evidence of the Holy Spirit: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, meekness, faith, gentleness, goodness. And that's what you should be looking for in a man. Until you see that, you're probably not mature enough. You don't have the self-control that you need to have. Like Pastor Allen said, I agree with what you said. Like, look, we'll handle that. We'll take care of that. Now, that's the attitude of a mature person that understands that, look, there's work going to be involved in this. You know what I mean? It's not just because a lot of people get married, a lot of women get married in the fantasy world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They have this fantasy that it's going to be, the picket fence and peaches and cream and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? When that's not reality. That's why I say sex is for grown folks.
And that's true, because when you say the healing part, and that is so true, because I know I've taken past relationships. I even took it into the marriage, past relationships. Mm-hmm.
So,
and that is considered an orgy.
I took it into relationship. What that person did, I brought it straight onto, because I hadn't healed for none of that stuff.
Exactly.
So I kept putting a Band-Aid, because I go from this person to that person. That person that I jumped one day said, I'm getting I ain't tell nobody I was getting married.
The
I
worst
just went and
thing
did it.
that ever happened to me is I was in a relationship and I really wanted to be with this person, and it kind of caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it, and the person was bragging on how she could please me sexually, and to me she thought it was something, she was telling me something that I wanted to hear, but as a man we don't ever want to be compared. In my mind,
To
all I
another
heard
man.
was you comparing me to your past, because you bringing your experiences in, and you're comparing me now to your past experience that you had. No man has any kind of self-esteem wants to be compared, especially sexually, to any other man.
That's right.
And that's why I believe God hates divorce, because you can't annihilate the experience. You know what I'm saying? But what do you do about bringing that experience into another relationship? You know what I mean? And you marry a person, you're bringing all your experience, and if you're not healed and you're not whole now to where you're remade again, you, like you said, you bringing that into the bedroom as well. That's that's an orgy. You know what I mean? And I'm not finna, like you laying in the bed and we going at it and in the climax and you thinking of somebody else, because I'm not doing it the way he did it, or she not doing it the way, oh man. And then you get to communicate, and how do you communicate? Oh, I need you to do this, because, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's comparison.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid it.
Yeah, most regardless to what, whoever you end up with, you're gonna run into their insecurities.
Yeah.
No matter what, that's an unavoidable situation. Their insecurities. So for me personally, I think this is a good step. As it relates to just the whole ideal and the concept of sex in and of itself. And maybe another time, if it's okay with you, Rick, we could deal with sex relative to sexuality, and where does the whole ideal of what you are sexually or prefer sexually, and how your sexuality is put in place with that. So maybe
Cool. So
another time.
I thank you guys for coming on the show, and absolutely, I would like for us to continue this conversation, because obviously we haven't exhausted it. I thank you guys for coming on the show and really being transparent, because it's not really easy, but and we do this because we're hoping that we're going to help somebody. Once again, thank you, Pastor Allen, for your insight and your what you're going, Sister Tammy and Sister Carolyn, and you guys agree to come back and
Sure.
on the show again.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we'll have this conversation again. I think it was a good conversation, and of course we'll go a little deeper and talk about the sexuality part. And thank you guys for coming on, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening, and make sure you tell a friend to tune in. Make sure that you subscribe, hit that subscribe, and hit that like button so that we can have more conversations like this. And if you can, leave a comment in the chat and let us know what you think about the conversation, and we can kind of bring up some of your questions as well. Thank you, Pastor Allen, again for bringing in. This is the Good Man Show. I'm your host, Mr. Rick. We'll talk again. Peace.